I love stories like this because you know what? They're all my fault. It's all my fault. If it wasn't for those meddling kids writing stories about blatant tampering by the Atlanta Falcons with Kirk Cousins, blatant, like in your face, double-barreled middle finger. I caught you with one hand in the cookie jar and the other hand giving me the finger. That's what the Falcons were doing when it comes to tampering. It was obvious they were tampering with Kirk Cousins. And I think this is what the NFL basically wants its teams to believe. We know everybody does it. Let's just not be ridiculously over the top about it. And it sure looks like the Falcons were ridiculously over the top to the point where Kirk Cousins was talking to team officials during the negotiating window, which is clearly a violation of the rules, to the extent where he was recruiting Darnell Mooney from the Bears. He got involved in the recruitment of another free agent during the negotiating window while they weren't supposed to be talking to him. So there's two different types of tampering here that the Falcons engaged in. Think about that. We've never seen this before. The Falcons, tampered with Kirk Cousins to the point where they solicited him, enlisted him to participate in the tampering with Darnell Mooney. It's unbelievable. It's like Inception. It's dreams within dreams and layers of tampering. And my God, but it's all our fault for pointing out what was happening. So anyway, yesterday, the NFL made it known. Oh, Teddy Bridgewater, by the way. Thank you. Teddy Bridgewater was the other
32nd overall
first-round pick of the Minnesota Vikings. Thank you. Yeah, they traded back in and got him. He did his two-glove workout. No, he did no-glove workout at Pro Day. It was a disaster. Private workout, two gloves. Vikings fell in love with him at a time when everybody else was down on him. Anyway, back to the tampering. Yesterday, the NFL made it known. And it's weird because I saw like everybody say per source. The NFL is investigating per source. I got an email from league spokesman. There's no off the record in there. It's not per source. The league said it. There's no secret here. There's no whispering here. The NFL's looking into it. Now they said it's part of the normal process or something like that. There's nothing normal about what the Falcons did. The Falcons have stepped in it, Charean, with both feet. The Falcons are busted. The Falcons are guilty. Now, every team is guilty of tampering to some degree. The Falcons are guilty of blatant multi-level tampering. Like, they went so overboard. I think their attitude was, and I've heard people explain, like, misconduct they were involved in by saying, I just went ahead and did it because I figured when I get caught, the punishment is never going to match up to what I did. I feel like whatever the league does to the Falcons is never going to fully rectify the extent to which they tampered with Kirk Cousins and Darnell Mooney. So it's all our fault for pointing it out. Anyway, Kwesi Adofo-Mensah was asked about it yesterday. He said that's kind of above our fray. Yeah, it's an ownership level issue. Because it's the point I made yesterday, Charean. At some point, the Wilfs are made to look like fools by this over-the-top blatant tampering. If you don't do anything about it, you're a patsy. You're a sucker. So they have to be pushing this because it wasn't just the run-of-the-mill phone calls that happened, meetings at the combine. This was an all-out assault by the Falcons to get Kirk Cousins. Kyle Pitts was involved in recruiting him, and I suspect if they investigate it thoroughly, they'll find out that Pitts was doing so at the behest of or with knowledge of the team. And again, it's all our fault for pointing out the obvious information that is playing out for all to see.
Yeah, Mike, that negotiating window opened at 12 Eastern time on Monday, and you have players signing or agreeing to terms within the first 30 minutes, hour. I mean, they're rolling in. That's when it starts rolling, one after the other. You think they put those deals together in a 10-minute period, in a 30-minute period, in a 45? Of course not. Of course there was tampering. Of course they had meetings at the scouting combine. That's what the scouting combine is for. Of course they knew where they were going to sign before Monday. The NFL takes that and looks the other way because every team does it. Every agent does it. They want to know what's out there. They want to know where they're going and what the deals are. And they have that. A lot of them have it ready right when that when the clock hits 12, boom, we agree to this deal. We're done. So it's okay to do it in the NFL's eyes if you don't do it blatantly. But the Falcons did it so blatantly and didn't keep their mouths shut about it, with Kirk Cousins openly talking about what he did before it started, that they have to penalize them in some way. But you're right, Mike. That penalty, even if the Falcons have to send a draft pick or two to the Vikings, is not going to be nearly as much. I mean, they'll gladly pay it to get what they got in Mooney and Kirk Cousins to come there. So, they're, oh, well, this is what we did. Yeah, we did it, whatever. And it's going to be easy to prove. I mean, the evidence is already out there. We have the evidence right here. So the NFL has to do something on this. But you're right, it won't be nearly to the extent that it probably should be.
Some people think that Rich McKay's status as chair of the competition committee will get them some sort of consideration. It didn't when they had the fake crowd noise incident from 8-9 years ago. He got suspended from the competition committee for 3 months over that. It didn't get them, an exoneration when they played games with the injury report, when Bijan Robinson woke up not feeling well on a Sunday morning and they didn't update the injury report and he didn't play he hardly played in the game. And everybody's like, what the hell? Where's Bijan Robinson? Oh, he got sick. Well, why didn't you tell anybody? Now, you could say they didn't get hammered the way they could have or should have, but I think, and the point I made yesterday, is this just the NFL checking a box and they'll meet with the Falcons and they'll accept their denials, the predictable denials, or will they do what really shouldn't be all that difficult to do? I could put together the list of 15 to 20 categories of materials you would want fairly quickly. You want to see text messages from Raheem Morris to Kyle Pitts, from Terry Fontenot to Kyle Pitts. You want to see all of Kyle Pitts' text messages or anything originating from the team, emails and text messages, because I have a feeling they were very reckless about this. I have a feeling there is a treasure trove, paper trail, digital trail of communications getting Kyle Pitts to go do what needs to be done. Maybe Kyle Pitts having a question. Hey, Kirk wants to know about this. What do I tell him about that? It'll be very easy to piece it together because I don't think they were being careful. Because if they were being careful, somebody would have told Kirk Cousins before his introductory press conference, don't mention that you talked to Ryan Pace on your drive to the team facility before 4 o'clock Eastern today. Don't mention that on Tuesday, clearly within the 52-hour negotiating window, when you're not supposed to talk to anybody from the team, you talked to the head athletic trainer. Don't say any of that. You can't say that you talked to anyone from the team before 4 o'clock Eastern on Wednesday. Got it? Good. The fact that they didn't do that, the fact that he volunteered that stuff, he wasn't being grilled. He wasn't under a hot light, sweating like Newman under his own hot light, trying to interrogate Jerry about mail fraud. He wasn't being questioned about it. He just threw it all out there as examples of how he fell in love with the team and why it's a great organization and all they're great people. I was talking to the head athletic trainer just yesterday. Kirk, what are you doing? What are you doing? Well, nobody told me not to say that. That's the problem. So my point is this. If they didn't even have it on the radar screen that they should tell Kirk ixnay on talking to people from the team, they've been very careless. They've been very reckless. And anybody with the slightest amount of zeal is going to find out that they violated the tampering rules multiple ways, extensively, both as to Kirk Cousins and as to Darnell Mooney. Because how is it? I mean, let's think about that. I don't want to belabor the point, but let's apply common sense here, folks. How does Kirk Cousins even get to the point where he knows they're pursuing Darnell Mooney? How does Kirk Cousins even get to the point where he's the conduit to call Darnell Mooney and close the deal when he's not even supposed to be communicating with the team? They're working through his agent. They're only supposed to negotiate through his agent. They're not supposed to tell his agent, hey, it'd be really helpful if he calls Darnell Mooney to close this deal. So this thing is a mess for the Falcons, and they only have themselves to blame. And we'll see. We'll see if the NFL treats the Falcons the same way the NFL would treat the team that beat the Falcons in Super Bowl 51. Because we know that fire would be raining down on the Patriots if these same facts were playing out in New England.
Well, and what the NFL can't do, Mike, I don't remember the teams. Was it a year ago, 2 years ago? They announced right before the draft began that it was the Eagles and somebody. They had given the draft picks.
Cardinals.
Who was it? Do you remember?
The tampering over
right.
Jonathan Gannon. The tampering over Jonathan Gannon. It was all quietly dealt with.
Exactly. They announced it right before the draft began that this was going to happen. Well, of course, everyone's tied up in the draft. It wasn't as big a deal as it should have been because the way they announced it, when they announced it, if they want to get serious about this and stop some of this stuff, the big stuff, I realize we're not going to stop the little stuff, and that's fine. Look the other way on that. But things like this, if you really want to put a stop to it, then you make the announcement at some point before the draft. You give the draft picks to the Vikings and you make it a strong penalty for the Falcons. And you write out exactly what happened and what rules they violated and how they violated them. And you make a big deal about it. But of course, I don't think that's going to happen. I think it will be quietly dealt with again. And we'll find out on draft night that the Falcons are sending the Vikings a low round draft pick or whatever it is. And we'll move on. Everybody will be too wrapped up in the draft to even think about what really transpired here with the Falcons tampering with Kirk Cousins and Kirk Cousins calling Mooney and all the things that happened with this that shouldn't have happened based on what the NFL's rules are.
We'll see, because the other tampering example that happened several months before the Eagles-Cardinals thing that we didn't even know about was the Dolphins getting whacked publicly right around Hall of Fame weekend, first-round pick. And I remember both the Saints and the Buccaneers, because there was tampering with Sean Payton and Tom Brady back to when he was with the Patriots. So I suspect the Patriots were curious about this as well. Why don't we get some? They didn't get anything. The NFL took the first-round pick away from the Dolphins, suspended Stephen Ross, suspended Bruce Beal, the limited partner, co-owner, or whatever of the Dolphins, who was the one who was working on Tom Brady for a period of years. They made that public, and they made that a big deal. And so let's see. We didn't know anything about the Jonathan Gannon tampering. We didn't know it was an issue. We didn't know it was a thing. And my theory on that continues to be, if the general public realized that the Cardinals were tampering with the defensive coordinator of the Eagles in the 2 weeks before the Super Bowl, at the time when he should have been fully focused on the Super Bowl, they basically undermined the integrity of the Super Bowl by having him prepare, while he's preparing for the game, for his interview with the Cardinals the very next day for a head coaching job. They put something in his brain and on his plate that he really didn't have time for. He made time for it to the detriment of the Eagles. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.